Welcome to the Travel Agent Podcast. I'm your host, Aylin Blanco. I interview successful industry professionals and share my personal journey to becoming a travel agent. The show is for aspiring travel agents and travel professionals at every level. My mission is to uncover the universal keys to thrive in this business. Join me as I take a closer look into the life of a travel agent. Hello and welcome to the Travel Agent Podcast. Thank you for joining again. Today, we have another amazing guest and we're going to switch it up a little bit today too, but I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Hi. Hey, I am so glad to be on your podcast. Man, this has been a while in the making. We met a while ago and, I think we had just great synergy, and I'm glad that right now our paths are aligning to just talk a little bit about estate planning, talk a little bit about how I think your folks, the folks who listen to this podcast, a number of travel advisors, folks who are interested in travel, can benefit from estate planning and just knowing the difference between the different estate planning mechanisms, which I'll touch on. But my name is Stevaughn Bush. I am an estate planning attorney in DC. I am also a litigation shark. I absolutely love probate litigation. A lot of folks think that, it's somewhat of a jungle, but when you know what you're doing, you can really get a lot of good results for folks. And a little bit about my background is that I went to Howard. I graduated from Howard Law in 2018, and I've kind of just hit the ground running in terms of my own business, making sure that I learned the ropes. I worked for a little bit in the Medicare space. So for anybody who knows or doesn't know what Medicare is the federal health insurance program that is primarily for senior citizens. There's a ton of work to be done in that area because a lot of seniors do not know what kind of health plans they're signing up for and what they can and cannot get. And oftentimes they get jammed in the system. So I worked as a consultant for a little while. And then I got my first legal job with a small Black-owned law firm in DC called Johnny Riddick and Associates. And there I did a lot of family law work. I did a lot of child support, child custody, divorce, and my experiences with divorce law really made me want to do something in the opposite direction to help folks who wanted to strengthen the family unit. And so I fell into estate planning shortly thereafter, and I just fell in love with the field. It allows me to write contracts essentially that folks can implement on their own lives and their own families so that the future of their families can have a strong legal foundation. And it's something that I love to do. I love writing wills. I love writing trusts. I love writing family trusts. And I also love talking about how folks can use trusts and different business structures to really shelter their assets and their businesses. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you for the introduction. So this is the power of Clubhouse, y'all. We met on Clubhouse and like you said, there was some synergy and I'm so glad to have you on the show. And if you've been listening for a while, a couple weeks ago, we had someone on the show that was basically talking about business structure and setting things up. And now we're going to go to the end of that. So we're going to get started with just kind of asking a question about estate planning. Like, what exactly is estate planning, and how is that beneficial to a business owner or just anyone in general?
Absolutely. So not too many people really understand what an estate is, first of all. So before I explain estate planning, I kind of have to go over what an estate is. So an estate is anything that you possess in this lifetime, in this reality, right? It can be your personal possessions. It can be your business assets, of course. It can be any kind of property that you have. Everything that you've accumulated up to your lifetime that has your name in the title of ownership is part of your estate. And The other thing that a lot of people don't understand is that even if you don't know what estate planning is, the state has an estate plan for you. So what does that mean? That means that when you pass away, if you don't have at least a will to instruct the court what to do with your assets when you pass away, then that means that the state will use its arbitrary formula to split up your assets and give them to whoever is entitled to it by what we call the law of inheritance. And that's when you get folks who, are part of somebody's family, and then they show up when somebody dies to see if they can appeal to a judge and say, look, this family member loved me so much when I was alive, and therefore I'm entitled to this expensive vase in their art collection or something like that, right? But I also want to roll back from that and say that an estate plan is not something that is only meant for folks who are ultra wealthy or even moderately wealthy, right? Estate planning is for everybody. An estate plan is literally just the process of protecting your assets so that your children or any of your loved ones can inherit those assets smoothly without any kind of interference from the court, from burdensome taxes, things like that. It's really just being deliberate about the about how you protect your family members and the ones closest to you, because on the other side of things, when you pass away, you don't want to leave a huge financial burden for your family and for any of your loved ones. And so that's what estate planning is. It's just protecting your assets and making sure that your loved ones can receive them smoothly.
Thank you for that explanation, because when we had met, I was under the assumption that estate planning was just for the wealthy. I didn't believe that me or any of my family members had enough assets to even proceed to doing something like this. So I was very happy to have met you and for that explanation, because I think it's really important that that word gets out. So um, most of my audience are business owners. So I kind of want to talk about we had kind of talked about business succession planning. So one of the things with the Travel Agent Podcast, one of the things that we really, really focus on is building thriving businesses. And because all of us are going to be super successful and things are picking up in the travel industry, I think that this is a great point to bring up for business owners. So, can you give us a little bit of information about business succession planning?
Absolutely. And I just want to say that for business owners, right, we understand what liability is, right? You want to make sure that you tamp down on your liability in every respect, because we know that if you have liability, that is going to cost you money. And so estate planning is just one extra step that you need to take as a business owner to make sure that you bring down your liability in taxes, you bring down your liability to creditors, and you make sure that there is a smooth passage of your assets, but of your business to whoever you want to pass it down to. I don't want people to be under, for me, I practice the law, and we're notorious, lawyers are notorious for keeping their practice going until they're 80 years old, right? And never wanting to let it go. But the fact of the matter is you need to make plans about how you plan to pass down your business when you either retire or you can no longer run the business. So right now, I have to put it out there that 30% of small business owners do not have an estate plan set up, which means that they're preparing themselves and their businesses for failure. And I hate to put it that way, but when you don't have a plan for your assets, then that means that necessarily you want to have the state's plan put in place of what you think should happen with your assets. If you want your child to run the business or whatever, and you don't make preparations for your child to inherit the business other than, hey, watch me and watch what I do, then you're preparing your estate and your business for failure. And I've sat in on a number of your rooms, with Clubhouse, and I like the way that travel advisors think inherently. You guys know that when you're traveling, you need to have an insurance policy, right? You need to know exactly what you're getting into before you get there. You understand the importance of planning. Business succession planning is using all of the mechanisms that are available to you, different LLC structures, S corps, family LLPs, family LPs, things like that, to make sure that your business and all of the operations that are centered around your business are protected. And that's pretty much it. You just want to make sure that in your business succession plan that you're outlining exactly how you protect your brand for now and in the future.
So, with all of my audience listening to this and including myself, like, what are the first steps that someone needs to take in order to to start the estate planning and to start the business succession planning? Like, who are they? Who would they reach out to? How does that process? What does the conversation start like?
Absolutely. So you to answer your one of your questions a little bit, just kind of straight to the point. You want to get in touch with an estate planner who understands how to use different entity formations to your advantage, right? So LLCs are going to be very, very important in a business owner's estate plan. Simply because you want to be able to, and I think people understand when I say this, you want to be able to take things out of your ownership, but retain control of it. Business owners, I know that you understand that, because when you have things under your ownership directly, that means you're incurring liability, right? You want to have things under your control, not under your ownership. And so the process that you have to begin to undertake when you want to start your estate planning exercises and your business succession is that you have to look at your assets, right? First, you have to determine that you have things worth protecting. And I'm so glad that I don't have to convince folks on this podcast that you have things worth protecting, right? If you have a bank account, you have something worth protecting. If you have a car, you have something worth, if you have a house, you have something worth protecting, right? And so you do that first step, and then you look into getting a will and then getting a trust, or you can get the two simultaneously, right? But a trust, especially a family trust or business trust, is going to be your best friend, because it's going to allow you to take those steps that you need to take in order to carve out your protection plan against taxes, against creditors, and ultimately, how do you distribute your assets to your next generation and closest of kin?
Well, I think that that is enough information for me to know that I'll be calling you for sure. We kind of had a meeting about it, and life happened, but every time I kind of hear what you're saying, it hits me, because we've all had
Yeah,
that
we're gonna
family
get back to
member,
it.
right? We all have that family member where they passed unexpectedly and things didn't go as we planned, and so um, I don't want that to happen in my family. And so I listen to you and I'm just like, yeah, I absolutely have something worth protecting. And so does everyone else who's listening to this podcast. So also, if you'd like to get in contact, uh, all of that information will be on the travel agent podcast.com/blog. A picture and all of the links that you can reach him at will be there as well. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I just think that what you're doing is so important and getting the word out. Because again, I think that people don't realize that the things that they have are worth protecting, and that there is a way to protect it, and that we should absolutely be planning for the future.
And also, before we wrap up, because I think that this is really important, this is really a statistic that made estate planning and business succession planning hit home for me, right? So I come from a family where we are, coming out of poverty, things like that, and we're trying to make those moves to preserve upward mobility, take all the right steps. I'm a first generation lawyer, and so when I understood the complexity of making sure you protect your assets, I immediately knew that I wanted to make sure that other folks were put on the right track to making sure that their stuff was protected. So the NASDAQ, according to the NASDAQ, 70% of folks who, strike it rich are able to actually attain some sort of wealth. 70% of those families will lose wealth by the second generation. So that means if you're an entrepreneur working hard right now, if you're not taking the proper steps to protect your assets, to safeguard your estate, then that means that by the time you have grandchildren, that the wealth that you're creating right now will dissipate. That's a very, very scary thing to me. And even more scary is that 90% of hardworking entrepreneurs right now, if they're not taking steps to protect their wealth, that wealth will dissipate by the third generation. So by the time you have great grandkids, 90% of families will not have the wealth that they're currently creating to rely on in the future. That tells me that folks need to get to business succession planning and estate planning in a hurry. In a hurry. You need a will, you need a well-constructed trust with reliable trustees and reliable directions for your trustees. And you also need to be utilizing different business formations to make sure that you retain control, not ownership, that you bring down your liability.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. I agree wholeheartedly. I'm definitely going to fall in line and do the right things. And I hope everyone listening does the same. Again, all of his information will be on the travelagentpodcast.com/blog. And we are so grateful to have you on the show today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and that you continue to do the work that you were doing.
Absolutely. And I look forward to, seeing everybody that you reach out to on Clubhouse, just really being in you guys' environment, because I benefit from it too. I'm traveling, I'm in North Carolina right now. It's beautiful. I'm staying at the Kimpton, great hotel, giving them a shout out, a very vocal shout out. And really, I learn something new every time I'm in one of your rooms. So thank you so much for being the great host and moderator that you are, Eric.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining the Travel Agent Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Visit thetravelagentpodcast.com for more information about today's episode and other travel agent resources. Be sure to tune in every Thursday for new episodes. Until next time, continue to build a travel business you love.